What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. As you can tell by the title, we are going to be talking about Netflix's new series. Netflix series called Unlocked: A Jail Experiment. And in this experiment, they go inside the Pulaski County Jail in Arkansas and they try a bunch of new stuff. We're going to get into it. If you guys are new here, hi, my name is Jess. I'm a person in long-term recovery who has in fact been to prison in Arkansas. So I have a lot to say. If you want to follow me on any other social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, Patreon, that's $2. It's only ever going to be $2. All of that is linked down below, as well as my vlog channel, my podcast, where you can find me on Roku, my Facebook, all that stuff. Without further ado, let's kick this thing off. Okay, so many of you guys asked me to react to this show, and because of copyright claim stuff, I can't share like little clips of the show. I've tried before with Netflix and they've got me. So also, if you have not seen the show, I'm going to be spoiling literally everything. So click away. I don't want to see any comments down below saying, "Oh my God, you ruined the whole show, you spoiled everything." I'm spoiling all of it. So this is your sign, this is your warning. Before we talk about the actual show, please understand that Pulaski County Jail, ass.
Not a great place.
And I say that because I was serving time in McPherson Unit and in Wrightsville Unit. These are prisons for women in Arkansas. Every single time a new girl would come through from Pulaski County, she was like, "This is heaven. This is heaven. There's commissary. We're not locked down." They were like all hella excited to get out of Pulaski County just because it's not a great county jail. Not that any county jail is great, but I've heard a lot of bad things about Pulaski County, mainly being that a lot of the time they're locked down and they're 23-1. A lot of the times they cannot have commissary because the whole unit is fighting and it's just kind of a mess. Kind of like what we see on the show. You're gonna hear some noises in my house. I have a family. We live up in here, just so you know. But from what I have heard about Pulaski County, having never spent time in Pulaski County, I did time in Sebastian County, which is in Fort Smith. Just from what I've heard, I feel like this was a pretty accurate representation of what was described to me. Now, if you have served time in Pulaski County, please let me know in the comment section down below if this was accurate to your experience. So essentially, this is what the experiment is. These men in H unit in Pulaski County, they're 23-1. They don't get commissary. They get out for 1 hour a day, and that's where they can shower, walk around, maybe use the phone. It is a lockdown facility and it's tense. And they said that almost always before that 1 hour mark was up, someone was getting in a fight, they were getting in trouble, they were getting locked down before the hour was up. So it was very, very tense. And that makes sense because you're keeping these men 23-1. You're keeping them in this tiny little cell all day. It's stressful. It's tense. You just feel rage. I've done solitary confinement time where you're 23-1. It's not easy. It really is not easy. Usually if you are locked down like that, you're not getting visits because you're in trouble. I'm not exactly sure how the visits worked before. I'm assuming that before they tried this new experiment, and we're going to get into that whoever was on loss of privileges or restriction, so whoever was getting into fights, which it seemed like it was a lot of people, they probably couldn't get a visit that week, or they probably couldn't use the phone or whatever, right? So that would be my assumption. Well, this new sheriff comes in and he's like, "I'm gonna fix this jail," and bless his heart. Bless this man's heart, because, ooh, Lord, that is not an easy task. It is one that is not for the faint of heart, I promise you that. The people in this unit specifically, they are violent offenders. A lot of them are convicted and waiting to go to prison. Some of them are awaiting trial for things like capital murder, domestic violence, robbery, aggravated assault, aggravated robbery, battery, drugs, the list goes on. The only charges that I don't see here are SA or crimes like that, which, good. The sheriff comes in and he's like, "We are changing everything. We are going to take the officer that was in the unit. The officer is going to step outside of the unit and monitor on cameras. We're going to install more cameras. And we're going to unlock the doors and let these men basically police themselves. And hopefully they form a little routine and structure and they can govern themselves." The sheriff wants them to work out their own problems. In my mind, that's not like a revolutionary, crazy idea, But you have to think about it like this. In that facility, there was constant tension, fights. I mean, there's always going to be fights in jail, but this unit specifically was known for that. So that's why they were locked down so much. So when the sheriff is like, we're going to unlock the doors, the guards are like, hell no, dude. Like, that's the worst idea ever. What are you thinking? It turns out being the best idea ever, because as it turns out, the more you treat a person like a human being and not a caged, abused animal, the more that human being is going to flourish and just do better in the long run, right? So the sheriff has goals for the long term, not just how are we going to get through this shift with these crazy ass inmates that are beating each other to a pulp every day. How are we going to create a culture in this jail that helps people do better, that makes people want to do better, because it has to be their idea, right? How do we fix this problem? Let's give them shit. Let's unlock the doors and give them freedom. So obviously that seems like a radical idea to some. To me, it makes perfect sense. I've studied prison reform for a really long time. When people have something to lose, they have something to work towards and strive towards, they want to keep it. They want to stay in line. They don't want to lose their privileges. When you take everything away from a person and shove them in a cell for 23 hours a day, what do they have to lose? Nothing. They're tense. They're going to beat your ass waiting for a tray because they're stressed the fuck out, All right, episode 1, day 1, we're letting all of the inmates out. We see Randy Randall. This man is in jail for domestic assault and possession of drugs. He's 46 years old, and he wants to run the show. He wants to be the peacemaker of the group, if you will. He wants to let them know, like, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to keep all these privileges. We want these doors open. And he is very vocal about that because he's old school, older. The new school guys are like, man, you're not going to police me. We're in the same uniform, dog. And I totally feel them on that. Like, day 1, breakfast, I'm mad. Like, why are you trying to tell me what to do? Like, mind your business. Maybe you take care of yourself. Don't beat anyone up. I'm not going to beat anyone up. And like, whatever. But don't tell me. Don't police me. Don't tell me what to do to keep these doors open. I would have had a problem with that for sure. So I understand their frustration, especially because we see like one of those old heads. What was his name? Randy Randall, his friend. What was his friend's name? Squirrel? Was his name Squirrel? He was making hooch, right? And the younger guys were like, how are you going to tell me to follow the rules and regulations, my guy? You're literally making hooch. But in Squirrel's defense, he's doing it in the cell, right? So like, yeah, they're going to play the cameras back eventually, and they're going to be like, okay, he was making hooch. But the whole reason why they were on lockdown is because these guys were fighting in the day room and causing problems for everyone else. And there was an officer in the unit that could ear hustle everything and that knew better what was going on. So in Squirrel's defense, if that was his name, he's like, I'm not beating anyone's ass. I'm not making hooch in the day room, So like, I kind of see it from both sides, but it genuinely would have like really made me mad. Then we see this freaking weird dude, Miller. Don't like him. He's in for domestic battery. And he's weird, right? But, some of the younger kids were starting problems with him. A couple of them even like threw water on his bed, and then the other guys are like gaslighting Miller about it. They're like, stop causing problems. He's like,
I was sleeping. Dude threw water on me.
so you see him making a shank. The guards take it and they take Miller out of there. But that is like 3 episodes of, not, is it 3? Yeah, it's like 3 episodes of Miller being annoying as shit. And that's how these jail shows are. They really rev up the drama. They take one situation with one individual, and that's like 3 episodes. If you notice, there's only 8 episodes in this show. That is because in a 6-week program, jail's boring. Jail's boring. They have to rev it up. They have to throw in the music and do the slow-mo. And they really have to keep you engaged because jail is boring. Jail is very boring. It can pop off at any time, sure, absolutely, but jail sucks. It's so fucking boring. That's what I think these shows do really well, is they keep you engaged. You're like, oh my God, what's gonna happen next? What do you mean? He's gonna beat his ass in the day room. That's what's gonna happen next. What's gonna happen with the shank? The guards saw him. They're gonna get taken out, So after a little bit of the program being good, kind of tense, but everyone's, kind of doing what they're supposed to do, the sheriff comes in and he's like, we're going to give you guys another freedom. I'm going to make the phones free. When I tell you that made me want to cry, you guys, you have no idea how important those phone calls are. And that was just an incredible thing that the sheriff did. Free phone calls, right? But now everyone's like, oh, hell yeah, they're jumping over tables and shit trying to get to the phone. It's going to be a problem. So even though I didn't really like Randy Randall with his domestic violence charges over here, being like, I'm in charge of all of you youngins, I didn't like a lot of the things that he did. It kind of irritated me from like an ex-inmate standpoint. Something he did that was amazing here was he's like, no, phone list. Phone list, you guys, write your name down and we're going to do this in order. 15-minute phone calls. Let's make a list. No fighting over it, because if you are fighting over the phone, you're going to lose that privilege, right? So that was something that he did really well. New York does that with phones. There's a phone list. So once the sheriff makes the phones free, that's when we really kind of get a good idea of who has family and friends on the outside, who's there supporting them, do they have anyone? What's that dynamic like? And one of the guys was in there on, I think his name was Don. He was in there on $1,000 cash bond, and you hear him on the phone with his sister. And, she's like, listen, dude, I had your back last time. And the time before that, I was sending you money every week. And when you got out, you didn't even come visit me. You just ran out and got high. And that just broke my heart because, as the loved one of an addict, family member of an addict, plus I was an addict in my past life, that sucks. We hurt a lot of people in addiction. I'm glad the show played that because that is real as fuck. That is real as fuck. Our families are just, at some point, if we keep going back, they're just fed up and they're tired and they're hurt. They feel betrayed, they don't know what to do or how to help. And a lot of family members, unfortunately, either cut off family members that go to jail over and over again and just don't talk to them at all, or they imply like a tough love situation. I am all about boundaries. If you don't want to give that person any more money, tell them no. You matter too. And, I'm glad that conversation was in there because I just think it's important when we're talking about things like addiction, because addiction and prison, they overlap. They go hand in hand. You know who I really liked on the show? I really liked Tiny. Tiny is shorter than me. Tiny's 5'3". And that is a very short man, right? So obviously his nickname is Tiny because he's very small, but he is mighty, you can tell. You can tell that he's had to beat some people's ass to get respect. And while Burner and I were watching the show, I'm like, look how big his hands are, dude. Like, he has big hands. I bet he could just beat someone's ass for sure. He was charged with aggravated robbery and first-degree robbery. So he's not fucking around. He'll jack your shit for sure. He might be small, but he's a tough individual. The reason why I like him so much is that you could tell that he was really longing for a relationship with his son. And then we go to the final episode and he's out and he's talking about that, talking about how grateful he is to be out. I don't know. You could tell he's lived a really hard life. So my heart went out for Tiny. This is my biggest criticism with the show and a lot of shows like this. I was researching it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but Netflix did not pay these inmates anything. According to Google, Lucky 8, the production company, sent Pulaski County a check for $60,000 for filming, per documents viewed on today.com. Lieutenant Antonio Waters and Deputy George Belt were given compensation for providing off-duty security to Lucky 8 staff at a rate of $40 an hour. According to records obtained, Pulaski County was paid $1,000 per day for filming, which equaled $60,000. From my research, I don't think the inmates were paid anything, which is really unfortunate when it comes to shows like this because it's kind of exploitative when you are, you're filming every day, right? And you're not getting compensation for it. And Netflix has made money hand over fist. If all they had to pay was $60,000 and then they had to pay their cast, the filming crew and editing, they're going to make a lot more money than, let's say, it cost $100,000 for the project in total, which I'm just guessing, I have no idea. They're going to make a lot more money than that. So it's just shitty. The only good thing that will come from that is hopefully these people that were on this show, they will find other gigs, they'll be interviewed, they'll have paid events or whatever, and people will reach out and be supportive, which is kind of the reason why you want to do a show, especially on Netflix, is because of the exposure. You're going to get interviews, you're going to be on other shows, people are going to reach out to you and want to hear more about your story. So, it is what it is. I just wish that they paid the inmates like a fair wage. And I know I'm gonna get pushback on that because of the exposure, because they're in jail, but we exploit inmates enough for prison free labor and all kinds of shit. So I don't even want to hear it. I feel like we should be paying inmates. A lot of these cases are just, I kind of want to do a deep dive on the cases that have murder, like Mayhem. Mason Mayhem Abraham, 21, was charged with capital murder following an incident October 18th of 2022 in Little Rock, Arkansas, which Little Rock, Arkansas is not a great place. I mean, like most cities, there's like the nice areas and there's the shit areas, but North Little Rock is rough, dude. I just maybe drive right past that and skip that one. If you need gas and you're driving through and you're passing through North Little Rock, no, you don't. You know your car. I've been there a few times. Not awesome. But it says Abraham and McCoy were arrested on May 24th after being accused of killing 32-year-old Broderick Blueford. The victim was found shot on the night of October 18th and later died in the hospital. Jordan Parkinson, who was 18, was arrested and charged with capital murder. Jaden Shackelford was killed by a gunshot in January of 2022. But in December of that same year, the Little Rock police made 2 more arrests. Grant Nickel, 17, and Evan Franklin, 18, were charged with murder in the first degree and terroristic acts for their part in the killing. Arkansas Online reported in 2023 that the murders stemmed from a marijuana deal gone bad. After cooperating with prosecutors to identify Franklin as the murderer, the charges against Parkinson and Nicole were dropped. And following the Netflix series, the former was released. So yeah, Jordan Parkinson, who's 18, was released. These are babies, 17, 18, 19 years old, capital murder. I mean, if that doesn't just send chills on your spine, dude, I don't know what will. One of these kids, his name's AJ, we see him in the show go to solitary confinement because he was having suicidal thoughts. And he thought if he told them that they were going to correct his medication. Instead, they put him on suicide watch, which that is just jail policy. It makes sense to think like, oh, if I tell them I'm struggling, they're gonna fix my medication. No, they put you in a turtle suit or a pickle suit, whatever you call it, and they keep you isolated. They watch you like a goldfish, and you don't have anything. You have a mattress and that, or maybe not even a mattress, he said. Yeah, he said he just had a blanket and he was in that pickle suit. It's horrible. It makes your mental health worse. And after a week of being in there, he went back to the unit, back to H unit. His case specifically is really hard because he made a horrible decision that ended up costing someone their life. It seemed like he was struggling with suicidal thoughts because of the guilt of what he did. When he was arrested, he was hitting his head so hard in the back of the cop car, they had to take him to the hospital before they could take him to jail. And then when he got back to the jail to be processed and booked in, they put him on suicide watch. AJ was arrested for capital murder and aggravated assault. He faced an additional 180 months for the firearm felony. In September of 2022, AJ was at a hospital in Arkansas to pay a visit to a friend, Jade. He suspected that Jade's fiance, Whitfield, mistreated his friend. The tension escalated and Lee requested AJ to pull his charger near the socket adjacent to where AJ was seated. AJ ignored the request and excused himself to go to the bathroom. AJ then texted his stepmother admitting to his negative feelings. He wrote in the text, "I should kill this boy right now. I'm standing 2 feet away from him. I've never shown this much restraint in my life." AJ then returned to the room with a gun and fired 3 shots into Lee's chest and 6 shots into his head. Oh my God. My guess is if he was that mad that his friend is in the hospital and this is her fiance, he probably hurt her really badly. He obviously cared very deeply for his friend and he believed that this guy hurt her very badly. So he probably thought he was doing the right thing. But he's young. He is young. And the rest of his life is now going to be spent in prison. Okay, so AJ is currently in the Varner unit, which is in Lincoln County, Arkansas. He's serving a life sentence and hoping to establish a sense of community. He's gonna have a tough time. You know, he seems to keep a low profile, which is good, but he's gonna have a hard time mentally. And you already see that play out at his arrest. You saw that play out on the show. He's really struggling with what he did. You know, it's gruesome to shoot somebody that many times and watch them die in front of you. Like, I can't even comprehend what he's going through. Obviously, that one decision cost him his life, that other man's life, Lee's life, that affected his friend that was engaged to this man, that affected both of their families. there's a lot of pain and loss when you deal with a crime like this. And AJ has to carry that pain for the rest of his life with the reality of, he destroyed 2 families and took a life because of that. So these are heavy charges. I forget how old he is, early 20s though, and I know that it's hard for some people to have empathy when we're talking about a person that shot and killed another person, but having served time with people with this kind of charge, I get it. And having been a victim of domestic violence myself and having friends that are victims of domestic violence, I know how angry you can be, how angry you get when you know that someone is hurting someone you care about and you can't do anything about it. You feel helpless. I understand that frustration and that anger. So I just have a lot of empathy, on all sides here. I really do. This is super random, but I absolutely loved the one dude climbing on the wall to get the battery out for his tattoo machine. I thought that was gangster as fuck. In episode 6, we see a shakedown and they find drugs. They find a wick, pills, hooch. They find a bunch of stuff. The sheriff's like, damn it. Y'all are killing me with this. Like, lockdown, everyone locked down. So now they're like, we're about to lose this program. They're going to lock us all back up and this is just going to be the end of that. Well, the person that was responsible for a bunch of stuff, not all of it, but he was responsible for quite a bit of this shit. He's like, I'm going to cop to it. I'm going to take all the charges, and I'm going to hold it down. Well, because he did that, the sheriff is like, awesome. Everyone is off of lockdown. I'm going to give you guys another chance. You're going to get a 24-hour reset. I think the sheriff is killing it, Hopefully he doesn't end up like the dude from 60 Days In. Isn't that guy in jail? Yeah, that sheriff's definitely in jail. I've seen a lot of these shows and I've seen a lot of sheriffs have a tough on crime policy and tough on inmates policy, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. When you show someone empathy and compassion and kindness and you respect them and you treat them like human beings, you have a very different result. So I've seen a lot of shows like this where the sheriff just doesn't have a lot of empathy. They don't give you more freedoms. They give you a lot less and they're strict and they're kind of shitty to you. And I've seen that not work out in the past. Like, I think 60 Days In is a terrible fucking show. I don't think it did any good. It gave people some entertainment, but it did no good. That jail did not improve, right? But I really like this sheriff. I hope he doesn't disappoint me later on down the road. Hopefully he doesn't do anything crazy, but you can tell that he has empathy and he really, he seems like he wants to make a change. And these are all positive things. Like, people tend to forget that if you have nothing to lose, then you literally have nothing to lose. Why should I? Why should I follow your rules? I'm going to make your day, every day you come to work, a living fucking hell if I don't have anything. I have no family, I have no friends, I have no phone calls, no visits. I'm locked down 23/1. Fuck you. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not even going to want to. You're treating me like trash. I'm going to feel like I'm trash. And it just continues this cycle, The reality of prison is if we don't change what we're doing, we're just going to have more of the same. And even if we changed all of it right now and we just completely redid the prison system, it will still take decades, generations to undo some of the pain that has been caused for generations of time. When one person goes to prison, that doesn't just affect that one person. That affects their entire family, especially if it's a parent. So we not only need jails to do better, but we need there to be a reentry program, not a class saying, don't break the law, you promise. Pinkies? No, job placement, job training and job placement and housing. And we need help to get back on our feet. Not a lot of people get out of prison homeless, go to a halfway house and not have any support financially, emotionally, none of it, and live a successful, sober life like I have done. There's a handful of us. We are definitely not the majority, and that's the fucking problem. Everyone should be able to get out and live a sober and successful life. They should want to. The problem is all of the obstacles that we face when we're out. People don't want to rent to felons. They don't want to hire felons. It's just a fucking nightmare situation and there's no bridge. We have to bridge the gap between leaving a facility, all the trauma that we went through in the facility, that's an issue, right? But then how do we re-enter society? What does that look like? And if there's no plan in place, we see a massive prison system. America leads the world in incarceration. So I think what the sheriff is doing is great. You don't restrict things from them and expect to make an impact. You give them more. You give them more privileges. You give them more freedoms. You give them things to work towards. That is how you change the prison system. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but the amount of families that are torn apart because one parent goes to prison, it's horrible. The numbers are through the roof. Do you know how life-changing it would be if nationwide we had conjugal visits, which sounds like it's just sex. It's not. It's families getting to spend a weekend together. It's making sure that that relationship in that family unit is solid, you know, at least if that's possible. We have this idea in society that you just shouldn't have broken the law, too damn bad, get over it. That's just the wrong mindset. We have all broken the law. We've all made mistakes. We've all messed up. And more often than not, we get a second chance, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm rambling. Maybe I'm not making any sense. But I see a lot of corrections officers in my comment section all the time talking about violence, talking about, you know, it's a two-way street when it comes to respect. Absolutely. If you respect us, we'll respect you. But at the end of the day, like, there's a reason why we're so angry and violent. Not me. I wasn't super violent. Women in prison aren't extremely violent. We do get in fights, but on the male side, if you implied nationwide conjugal visits and free phone calls, I guarantee you that the violence in these facilities would be cut in fucking half, more than half. Overall, I highly recommend the show. I think the sheriff is doing a really good job. I think it's pretty accurate from what I've heard about Pulaski County Jail. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. But I'm going to end today's video here. As always, I love you guys. Stay safe, stay in recovery, whatever the fuck that looks like to you, because there's no wrong way to recover. Don't break the law, especially in Pulaski County. That's not a good time. Love y'all.